Here we think they know better than Arabs and Muslims in the region about these two organizations.
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, leader of the Iranian opposition in exile. The Islamization of the West, demographic replacement, is this something that concerns you?
And I warned the Europeans many, many years ago that one of these days it's going to be in your own backyard. And guess what? It is not in your own backyard. You can come to a country as a guest, and instead of assimilating and respecting our values and our culture, you're dictating to us that we should now practice the Sharia law in Europe. They'll end up like Iran pretty soon. Nothing good came out of this so-called Sharia law.
The massacre is exceptionally brutal.
Unprecedented in modern history.
36,000 dead.
A regime so desperate that it massacres its own people, that it has to import over 5,000 militias that are not even Iranian nationals, from Lebanon, from Palestine, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, to do the dirty job and Iranian people on the street. That the media doesn't talk about.
What is it that you would actually like Western governments to do in practice?
Number one, come to our help to equalize the playing field for us by taking out and neutralizing the element of repression that the regime is utilizing. That includes the IRGC or any other instance.
So you're advocating for an armed intervention?
Number two, economic strangulation, freezing of their assets and repurposing that towards helping the Iranian people, expelling their diplomats, closing their embassies, going after them legally and prosecuting those who have been criminally responsible for these acts of crime against humanity, making sure that Iranians are not disconnected from the world, so access to internet and information is critical. And ultimately be ready to recognize a transitional government that is the legitimate answer, because this regime is on the verge of collapse. It's just a matter of time.
My name is Stefan Thompson. I'm the founder of Visegrad24, and today I'm here with Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the unofficial or official, to some people, leader of the Iranian opposition in exile. Reza, what a pleasure to be here with you.
It's good to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. We're meeting in very specific circumstances. There has been an insane crackdown. The massacre is exceptionally brutal. Tell us about what is happening to Iran and what it feels like from your perspective.
No words can describe the degree of violence that has occurred. The minimum numbers that we have had was over 36,000 people just in the Tehran area. The numbers could be wider. They don't just end with killing people on the streets. They chase them into hospitals. They finish them off on their hospital beds. There are over 40,000 people who've been arrested, more than 300,000 wounded. Women are being raped in jail. It's really atrocious in terms of the level of violence that has been utilized. Despite that, Iranians are still resilient. They've been chanting slogans from the rooftops every night since that massacre. You have seen a wide level of support for them in the Iranian diaspora worldwide, from Australia to Canada to here in Europe. And everybody is up there backing each other up and supporting each other in this revolt. I mean, we are right now at a state where we are dealing with an occupying force, and everybody is hoping that the world will come to the rescue and deliver us in terms of, a sort of a humanitarian intervention that is necessary. This is the only way that we can find an opportunity to actually rise against a regime that very unfairly has all the advantage of repression, and only the world can help us by equalizing the playing field for us. So everybody's awaiting some action to be taken sooner rather than later to save lives, in reality, to have less casualties in our struggle for freedom.
Some of the videos that have been emerging from Iran are absolutely horrific, including a video that particularly moved me. Was a video of IRGC forces driving a car and literally driving over protesters. Now, these videos have been proliferated on social media, mostly on X, where we've had Iranian diaspora members and dissidents and people who stand against the regime, who have been the voice of the people of Iran. What is very marking to me as I watch your struggle and the struggle of the Iranian people against the Islamic regime is that the mainstream media has been broadly silent about the scale of this crackdown. You've just said the figure 36,000 dead just in the Tehran area. Now, the war in Gaza attracted mainstream media attention for 2 years. Tens of protests in every single capital city, every week, every Saturday, hundreds of thousands of people coming out. Why is the mainstream media, in your opinion, not as interested in the plight of the Iranian people as they were in the plight of the people of Gaza?
Indeed, social media has been key to report back to the whole world what's happening on the streets of Iran. And unfortunately, mainstream media has been practically absent from it. Is it because maybe it doesn't fit their narrative in some way? Is there a double standard going on? I leave that to the public opinion's judgment, but clearly it has been quite absent from describing something that has been unprecedented in modern history. Over 30,000 people in less than 2 days being murdered. And yet it seems like that's not a big enough of an issue for mainstream media to cover. And at some point they'll have to be accountable in a way. Not covering such a tragedy is either complete ignorance or worse, almost like playing to the regime's hand and its instrument of propaganda that has always been masking all their dirty work. A regime so desperate that its total darkness massacres its own people. A regime so desperate and weak that it has to import over 5,000 militias that are not even Iranian nationals, from Lebanon, from Palestine, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, to do the dirty job and kill Iranian people on the street. That the media doesn't talk about. I think many Iranians like me are quite frustrated. What should be the most obvious thing for a reporter to do is just to report the news. Hopefully they'll catch up to it and wise up to understanding that it is a moral obligation to cover this. As a journalist, you could not be oblivious to this level of genocide.
There have been a number of protests organized by the diaspora. Some very moving images outside of embassies, the lion and sun flag flying. Every time I see it, I get slightly moved. My family was in exile. I'm half Polish, and my family was also in exile. So your plight is sort of familiar to my family story in and of itself. So I find it emotional from that perspective. The diaspora is bringing attention to the horrors happening in Iran today. What is it that you would want the Western world to do to actually help the Iranian people? Telling the story is one thing. Getting the images out is something that even people like me can do. But what is it that you would actually like Western governments to do in practice?
When you have leaders beginning to take a very strong stance, example, Chancellor Merkel, that talks about this regime having lost complete legitimacy. Well, when a system becomes illegitimate, then you have to, by the same logic, say, well, what is therefore legitimate? Is it the aspiration of the Iranian people that finally needs to be acknowledged? Because for 40 years, the West has, in essence, conducted a foreign policy of appeasement with the hope that somehow this regime will change its behavior and will become reasonable enough to come to the negotiating table and stop its strategy of unleashing radicalism and extremism and terrorism regionally and beyond. That hasn't happened. Meanwhile, we are where we are today as a result of a regime that has always been thrown a lifeline for 4 decades, and to this day haven't shown any resemblance of the ability to transform itself into something other than what it is. And it cannot, because as I say, what they are doing is in their DNA. They are not compatible with the democratic free world that respects human rights, that values individual liberties, that protects the right of minorities, religious, ethnic. This is a regime that has basically been there only to export an ideology at the detriment of the Iranian people and against the interest of the free world. So when we look at the free world, what do we expect them to do? Number one, you can certainly help us by making sure that Iranians who are defenseless and unarmed vis-a-vis such level of brutality come to our help to equalize the playing field for us by taking out and neutralizing the element of repression that the regime is utilizing. That includes the IRGC or any other instance.
So you're advocating for an armed intervention?
That is a humanitarian intervention, because the instrument that kills people on the streets can no longer be tolerated by the world. And it's not the first time it happens. I mean, sometimes wars ended on the result of intervention of that nature. Example, Second World War.
Sure.
You know that very well, as somebody from Poland. Number two, economic strangulation in terms of any revenue that the regime is utilizing to fund and keeps its war machine going on. Freezing of their assets and repurposing that towards helping the Iranian people in their various campaigns, from labor strikes and others, for instance. Expelling their diplomats, closing their embassies, going after them legally and prosecuting those who have been criminally responsible for these acts of crime against humanity. They can also do more in terms of making sure that Iranians are not disconnected from the world, so access to internet and information is critical. And that will be an instrument that will be of tremendous help for us in every phase of the game. And ultimately be ready to recognize a transitional government that is the legitimate answer to the aspiration of the Iranian people against a regime that has lost complete legitimacy. These are the kind of tangible steps that I think the world can take to help us. And at the end of the day, they will realize that this is in fact not just because it's good for the Iranian people, but it's good for their own interests as well.
One of the things that is misunderstood perhaps about Iran is how influential that country is in the Middle East and what role it has played, including in the Israel-Hamas war. The Israelis weren't just fighting against Hamas, they were fighting against a number of proxies. Could you tell us more about the role that Iran plays as a destabilizing force in the Middle East?
But again, the regime trying to establish its modern-day Shiite caliphate and export it to the world is using a lot of its proxies to conduct that. So whether it is their support for Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, for instance, and all the way to European soil and even the Western Hemisphere, having terrorist organization or having sleeper cells that are funded by structures that are directly linked to Khamenei, the supreme leader, targeting, for instance, British citizens on British soil.
Could you give us some examples, Reza, of the operations that Iran has carried out in Western nations to destabilize Western nations?
Well, in fact, I presented in detail the whole mapping of the structures and institutions that are disguised as so-called foundations or centers that are directly under the authority of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, who operates on European soil, in this case in Britain, and how they're targeting British citizens, the Jewish community, journalists, dissidents, and what have you. And they have that spread out. That's not even before we start talking about the money laundering operations that they also have. And a lot of it, again, ties to the IRGC and why the prescription of the IRGC keeps popping up as one measure that needs to be taken. That's a subject in itself. But these are the kind of ways that the regime so far has conducted to undermine regional stability and, by its proxy war, achieve two things. A, create that instability that they thrive on, but also to deflect attention from themselves. Every time there was an issue, they would deflect attention either to Syria or to Lebanon or to Gaza or to Israel or to any other thing, to deflect attention from themselves. That has been a tactic that the regime has used for decades.